That's my job. Okay.
Come on, let me test.
Let's see. Here we are again with at Slab Log. I'm Philip Albritton, the host, and one of my co-hosts is sitting right there, Lloyd.
This is the good Lloyd speaking.
And over there is Ronnie.
Lloyd, you know you can't count to three. You can't test.
So we're currently waiting on Charles to call. So whatever y'all want to talk
Charles.
about.
Philip, I do have a topic I would like to talk about. It's been preying upon my mind lately. I remember back in the 50s.
You remember that far?
I do. I remember back in the 50s, I was just a tadpole.
A young lad.
Sitting on the front porch talking with my great-grandpa, Oscar Carraway.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all remember.
I do.
Yeah.
And I noticed that Grandpa, we call him Grandpa, he would often refer to things as, well, the other day, such and such happened.
Yeah.
And I asked him one time, Philip's motioning for me to keep my hands off the table if we're wondering about the bumping.
Them blue gloves is distracting me, too.
All right, I've got my coronavirus gloves on
Don't
here.
touch your face either.
I knew Ronnie and Philip would have germs. No telling what they've been handling. But what was I talking about?
Germ gets on me, it'll kill him.
You were talking about Grandpa.
Grandpa, he used to refer to things as the other day, and just out of curiosity, I said, Grandpa, when did that happen? I think it was like 1929, spring of 1929. And I thought that was, all my life, I thought that was kind of comical, how old people begin to refer to everything as the other day. Ronald Reagan did that, of course he was old. And now I find myself doing it as well. I can't remember when it happened, so it's just everything's the other day.
The accuracy therein is that
time just is beginning to run together.
It was the other day.
Huh?
It was always the other day if it wasn't today.
Well, and then, being a deep thinker, I began to think about time.
Time, man, to them hogs.
What time to a hog? Ain't nothing to a hog. But I began to think about how God, how long He's been around. 1,000,000 years, 100 million, 1,000 million. Man, to have a conversation with God, everything would be the other day. Well, the other day I was talking to Abraham, my buddy Abraham, or Moses says to me the other day.
Well, 1,000 years
but I can
is
see
supposed
that
to
happening.
be like a night, like a day. 1,000 years is a day.
It's a very strange phenomenon, and I don't know where I was going with this, but it was just something I was thinking
You must have
about.
had a point there somewhere. Well, put
I
that
had a
knife
point.
down.
When I started the conversation, I had a point. But
You forgot it.
Well, it probably had something to do with the aging.
You remember, Lloyd, this stuck with me, too, about Grandpa Carraway. And I can remember, you may have been down there with us. We were always 2 or 3 of us down there, in his way, and he's painting the porch and never say a word except get away.
Every now and he'd say something.
Grunt, or something like that.
I wish I'd paid more
But
attention.
he said, we asked him one time that where our generation, predecessors came from, and he said, I came from, how'd you get here? And he said, well, I came from the other country, way over. I said, well, where was that? He said, up around Andalusia somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Here's our call coming in.
Hello?
Hey, Phil, it's Charles Barnard.
Hey, Charles, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear Lloyd? Talk, Lloyd.
Hey, Charles, this is Lloyd, Philip's little brother.
Charles Barnard, do you mind being called Chuck?
That's fine.
Okay.
That was the other host, Ronnie. Hey,
What's wrong with Charles, Ronnie? Well, you got to change things.
Okay, y'all supposed to be quiet now while I adjust his gain here. Okay, Charles, say something so I can adjust your volume gain here. What was that?
I said, got a mouthful of chocolate chip cookie.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you're coming in loud and clear.
I would have guessed hot dog.
That chocolate chip version sounds good to me.
Chocolate chip choke. Yeah. Hey, this is our 8th podcast, I think, our 8th episode. And you guys don't know Charles, but Charles is about 6'6", long, wavy, curly hair, and he's a gynecologist.
Naturally. He would have to be.
Like an Adonis.
I can't. Wait a minute. Can we spell gynecologist?
No.
Let me get my pen.
Anyway, we're gonna let Charles explain the real Charles here in just a minute.
No, I think they modeled the Geico caveman after me.
Yeah. Well, Charles, glad to have you. We're sitting around here just chatting for a minute, waiting on your call. But since this is primarily a motorcycle-themed podcast, I wanted to at least touch on something motorcycling while we're here. But I remember talking to you earlier. You expressed an interest in talking about a comparison between motorcycling and your current profession. But I would like for you to talk something about getting lost in the woods one time. That's a pretty interesting story, too. So,
Well, we were never really lost. It was just a series of bad decisions to keep going.
Say do what now?
but it was in the woods.
I was in Tucson, Phoenix, Flagstaff. I think it was Flagstaff, Arizona.
Man, they got woods out there?
No, but I was hot and tired and broke and lost, and I'd gotten off the bus at the wrong exit, and I knew the lawyer's office would have a water cooler and a bathroom, and I asked the guy, he steps out to help me, and I said, have you ever made one bad decision and then just followed it up by another and another and another? And he said, yes, that was the day he decided to go to law school.
Well, we have another brother who's a lawyer. He's not here. He won't show up. He's afraid what we'll ask him.
Won't answer the phone either.
You probably can't afford to ask him any questions, Phil.
Yeah, he's afraid of what will get out there.
Well, you can't ask him a question because he just answers it with a question.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you guys have had a lot of rain this spring and late winter, and the story you're thinking about, there were 5 or 6 of us went out for a ride, and we all have these overgrown dual sport bikes that were never intended for old men or gravel roads, or certainly not dirt. But that's never stopped us from acting the fool, and we went and got to a point where a power line road just sort of disappeared before us going down this hill, and everybody had sense enough to turn around but me and a young man. Help me with the name. I just drew a blank on his name, Phil.
Eric? You talking about Eric?
Evil Canoe?
No, not Eric.
Bill Gould?
Bill, yeah. So Bill was on a British enduro bike that you could flat foot and stand up over the top of, about like an old Honda 50. And I was on that big 1100 GS that I have to tiptoe. And the further we went, the deeper the mud got, and the iffier the trail got, and the further from civility we got. And I'd go about 50 to 100 yards, and my front wheel would pack with mud, and then that front wheel would seize up and slam sideways and shoot me off like a watermelon seed. And Bill would have to turn around. He'd stop, put his kickstand down. He'd walk back 100 yards because he never fell over, the son of a gun. And he would come back and help me dig the mud out between, that low-hugging front fender and the front tire.
Man,
Right.
that sounds like some of that Alabama red clay.
Yeah. And we would dig mud for a while, and then I'd get up and get going again and ride another couple 100 yards, and whoo, off I'd go again. And I would have never made it out of there that day if it weren't for Bill. That bike would still be there, buried up to the gas tank in a mud hole somewhere.
Didn't y'all end up joining the group again when you came out of the woods to a main road?
We did. And you know, I was just covered in mud head to toe, and Bill didn't have a speck on him because he was always in front of me, so he didn't get any rooster tail, and he never had the decency to fall over and join me. So he was spotless, and I looked like I'd been in a greased pig competition. And I was overly enthusiastic about my gratitude toward Bill, and so a lot of the guys felt like maybe something else happened there in the woods just beyond cleaning mud.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been so effusive with my appreciation, let's say.
You didn't try to kiss him, did you?
Check those trouser knees.
Yeah, I think Marvin might have been the originator of some of those rumors. You know.
Well, yeah, and I heard Marvin as your guest a few weeks ago, and he has the best stories because his are mostly true.
Yeah, he told us about running over the bear and stuff.
Yeah, they all involve an animal.
Well, Charles.
And let me interrupt you just a second. You know Gilbert Godfrey, right?
Yeah.
Gilbert Godfrey has a tremendous joke that can't even be told on the internet that involves a bear.
Oh.
And the punchline is he knocks the bazooka out of the hunter's hands, flips him over the rock, and says to him in his ear, "Let's be honest, you don't come out here for the hunting, do you?"
Well, that's a novelty in itself, finding a talking bear in the woods.
Yeah. or a bazooka. Which in the Marine Corps we call that a 3.5 rocket launcher.
Call it a what rocket launcher?
3.5 rocket launcher in the Marine Corps.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I had a talking dog once, but I had to shoot him because it wouldn't do nothing but tell lies.
Lie the whole day. Never been out of the yard. That's the one you got $10 for. Right?
Yeah, sold him for $10.
Yeah.
I can't believe you sold that dog.
well, I've known Charles for quite a long time, and Charles was his main career, I think, when I knew him anyway, for a long time, was teaching. But then lately he got out of that and he started doing something quite unique. We all kind of envy him now. Charles, you want to tell us about that?
Well, for your listeners that are really motorcycle riders and campers and explorers like our core little group, I spent a lot of years and a lot of miles with a sleeping bag and a backpack strapped on the back of the GS, and when I left in the morning, I never knew where I would spend that night.
Right.
And then a little later, I added a CPAP machine as the years caught up. So I may not have known exactly where I was going to spend the night, but I knew that it was going to have to involve an outlet.
Right.
And so that was fine. That was me for a lot of years, and now I'm driving an 18-wheeler over the road, long-distance trucking, and I have a sleeper cab. I have a refrigerator, a bunk bed that doesn't have to be folded and rolled every morning, and a permanent plug-in for my CPAP. And what I found amazing, my dear mother has worried about me more in this truck than she ever did out on the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden I'm the son she didn't realize she had.
Well, maybe she knows something you don't know about.
Well, I don't know. But I had her trained where I would call when I could on the motorcycle, but certainly not every day. Now it's, where are you? Are you warm? Do you have enough to eat? I said, Mom, how come when I was out here on the smallest vehicle on the road, you never worried about me? I'm an 80,000-pound truck with a week's worth of groceries and a full power supply, and you worry about me constantly now. But anyway, it's sweet. It's nice that Mom's still around to worry about me, you know.
Well, how much of that job, how much of your time does that job take? Are you like 7 days a week working, or you have weeks that you don't work sometimes? Or
it's crazy. They'll let you work as long as you want. They're like I got to be careful.
Just keep your logbook accurate. Huh?
Well, shoot. I'll probably go bankrupt if I ever get pulled over by the DOT and get fined for all my log violations. I'll probably just hold my wrists out and say, go ahead and take me in, boys. It'd be cheaper.
Yeah, I remember all those years I worked with the Department of Transportation, enforcing all those trucks and all, and that was a big thing, was checking the logbooks.
Well, now, thank God they're electronic, because I wouldn't be smart enough to keep one on paper.
Yeah, well, this goes way back with paper and pencil,
Sure, and those truckers that kept 3 and 4 logbooks going, they were just CPAs that wanted to get outdoors.
Yeah, how old are you, Charles?
56.
56. And so this is a second career for you, the truck?
Oh, this is a fourth or fifth career for me. Yeah, I taught school for over 20 years, and
good. I take it you're not married now, though.
Well, I've been with my girl for a long time. We've been together 25 years. She keeps telling me. I think it's only 7 or 8, but she says it feels like 25 to her.
Does she ride the long haul on the trucks with you?
I'm not that far along in the process. I'm still.
The cab of a truck is very small.
That's what he tells her.
I'm still trying to learn how to communicate with the lot lizards. They tell me to tie a sock on the mirror, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
What kind of motorcycle do you ride now, and how much time do you have to ride now?
It's a terrible question, Phil. I'm sorry you asked it. Like everybody, I've gone through multiple bike syndrome. I had an 1100 GS that I personally put 90,000 miles on, and that was who knows what year model it was. And then I got a 2013, I guess near the end of the oil head era, and I've only put 40,000 on it. And since I've started driving and I had that big surgery a year ago, I've only ridden it twice, and they were both round trips from Atlanta to Indiana. So after having not ridden for 12 solid months, my one ride was a 1,000-mile loop to Indiana.
Yeah, I did a similar thing moving down here to Atmore. I just didn't ride for a long time. I just didn't do it, and then suddenly I wanted to go to Virginia,
Right.
It's farther away now.
I made it to Auburn, Alabama, and had to turn around and come back. But
is that where the term iron butt comes from?
Yeah.
It
Must be. Yeah. Well, it wasn't.
God, I'd have to go out and probably get tires that don't have flat spots put on before I ride again.
Yeah. Well, I know you've had a long, colorful history riding, and we appreciate you being our guest today. We're kind of looking around for other guests, so if you run into anybody, give them my phone number, and they can call me.
And be careful with those Oreos.
Oreo.
Or chocolate chip cookies. Yeah.
Chocolate chip cookies.
Well, I'll tell you, Phil, I figured when you invited me on that you'd pretty much exhausted all your other possibilities for guests. So,
Oh no, you're the first one that's ever come up to the average.
we'll take we'll just take this for the cry for help that it was.
Yeah, exactly. But
I've sure enjoyed it, and I appreciate getting to visit with your brothers.
Well, Charles, just as an aside, Philip and Ronnie and I, we in one of our varied projects, we had a little radio program here in the Atmore radio station before
Back in 2014.
After about a year, they finally fired us. But we came on every morning for an hour, and it called Lloyd and Friends, Interesting Conversations with Interesting People. And my wife said, "Are there really that many interesting people around here?" She said, "How often are you going to do this?" I said, "Every day." She said, "Every day?" I said, "Well, I'm kind of like Will Rogers, who never met a man he didn't like.
Sure.
I never met a man who wasn't interesting." And truly,
That's right.
And truly,
if you take the time to listen, you meet a lot of great people out on the road.
it was an amazing experience. I mean, sometimes on Thursday, I wouldn't have a single guest for the next week, and I'd take a drive to Walmart or something. You want to be on the show? You want to be on the show? And some of these people were extremely interesting. You just wouldn't think it. They all were.
Well, the way things have got right now with this virus and everything's closed, nobody has anything to do. And I've come up with an idea for entertainment. Wife and I were going to go by Arby's, the drive-through naturally, and get a sandwich and then drive up to the Walmart. You can't get in there, but you can sit out in the parking lot and eat your burger and watch people come and go.
Ronnie, you must be retired.
Yeah. Well, you better take your wife with you on that adventure so the Vice Squad doesn't get involved.
No, I'd never thought of that.
That's right.
I would have never thought about that Woods thing either. I don't know how affectionate you were with the guy, but I probably wouldn't even thought about it.
yeah. All right, Charles,
Well, that's what we have Marvin for.
Yeah, that's right. We leave those stories to Marvin to originate.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'll sign off here, and I'm humbled that you thought to give me a call, and I hope this is my internet success debut.
That's right. If this makes any money, Philip's going to let us all have some of it.
Yeah. All right.
Get that running water going.
Look for the podcast, slablog.net, and we'll sign off, and we'll talk to you later, Charles. Have fun.
Okay, fellas. Take care now.
Good talking
Bye-bye.
to you, Chuck.
All right.
You bet.
Bye now.
Are we still on the air?
Well, we're recording. I'm just hanging up from talking to Charles.
We're still recording?
Yeah, we're still recording.
Well, it sounds like a funny guy. Yeah.
Charles was at one time was our the president of the Georgia motorcycle club, BMW motorcycle club,
Mm-hmm.
and
Is he the one that more or less or all of you together dreamed up to visit the courthouses?
No, that was
the 180 county courthouses.
that was a different guy.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Philip always got his motorcycle picture in every courthouse picture.
Another story about Charles that I'm sure he'll laugh about this because we went to the annual rally one time. There was we all as a group we camped in the same area, and we all were up on this hill there. And next morning we all woke up and was getting out of our tents on Saturday morning. And we looked way down in the gully. There'd been a storm, and there was this gully way down at the bottom, and somebody had camped out way down in that gully, right in the trench. And we're like, who in the world? What idiot was down there camping in that gully? And no, Charles crawls out of the tent.
That kind of reminds me of that All the Pretty Horses movie with Billy Bob Thornton, where the flood. If you camp in a gully, it's dry, and it rains and it floods.
Yeah.
The guy lost his horse and ended up in Mexico. Anyway, long story.
I knew you'd work Billy Bob. I knew you'd work Billy Bob in on this.
That's another strange thing about growing older. Billy Bob Thornton seems to work his way into every conversation I have anymore.
I know it.
Well,
I don't know what
seven.
You are him, Lloyd.
What's that? The 7 links to Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon's associated with everything.
Yeah. Well, you could say that about almost anybody.
Is that Canadian
Really,
Bacon?
Yeah, Canadian Kevin Bacon.
Canadian Kevin Bacon.
Well, it's been large.
Yeah. I don't know how many minutes I got here.
You probably got.
We got more time.
You probably got about 20.
It won't switch over right now.
Oh, well, we can always talk about the coronavirus.
746 beats. That's what I show here.
Well, that's at least 746
About how many minutes that be?
seconds. Huh?
I don't know. I have to go over there. It's probably 25, 30 minutes.
That'll be.
Well, yeah, it's been fun. I was afraid I wasn't gonna get anything in this week, but we'll turn it into a podcast.
Did you ever get Steve to come up with some possible time that he could be here?
Steve Reynolds?
Yeah.
I texted him last night, and I never did hear back from him. But he I found out. I looked later. He was up at somewhere swimming today. He went and swam a mile or something today.
He's an Iron Man for swim a mile.
So he's always involved in that fitness, that running thing.
Mm.
Yeah. But we'll get him. He'll come out sometime.
I hope they ain't rolling him in here in a wheelchair when they do.
No, he's an Iron Man.
Yeah.
I'd like to give credit for our music today to Jeff Hurley, a song called Living It Up from XL Music Publishing, freemusicpublicdomain.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0, creativecommons.org.
All right, signing off. Here we go. Bye, y'all.